Welcome to Stuck Time to Improv. I'm Mary Scott with Business Ref, and I want startup businesses to be wildly successful. Today, we have practical, tactical advice for introverts on how to present. Our special guest is Stephanie Thoma from Holistic Ambition. Thanks for coming, Steph.
Thanks for having me on.
So, how do you approach presenting when you're a really shy person?
Something that I like to start out with right away is doing a self check and understanding, are you focusing on yourself or are you focusing on the audience or your message? Because oftentimes when there's a great level of self-consciousness, to the point where it's beyond being self-aware, there's second guessing, there's this sort of imposter syndrome of, oh, like, does what I have to say matter? Do I have the expertise? Blah, blah, blah. There's an opportunity to reel your energy back in, and instead of being so focused on questioning yourself, to really focus on the content of the message and the people that you're going to help can be something to start with.
Okay, and particularly for startups, they tend to be in two or three different kinds of presentation situations. One is they're just one-on-one networking and trying to tell people about their new product or new idea. One is presenting to a group of people to get some feedback on their idea. And the important one is when they're presenting to investors. So it's important to get in a lot of practice before you get to the investors, that's for sure. But can you give some tips about when you're presenting one-on-one and when you're presenting in a group?
Yeah, so you always ideally want to be focusing on the person or the people in the room. So it's not necessarily always about talking at someone and being like, okay, here's my laundry list of different points that make this relevant, to this person in front of me, where they're simply, looking at you and nodding. It's a dialogue when it's a one-on-one meeting. So being aware of establishing rapport. So there's Deborah Tannen is a researcher in the sociology space, and she focuses on rapport versus report. And introverts can get really caught up in this element of report, where here are the statistics, here's why it's credible, where sometimes, it can be dismissed as fluff, but really establishing rapport and things you have in common with someone can enable them to trust you, which is really key. People do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So maybe even, again, taking the spotlight off of yourself and placing it on the person in front of you, even if they are there to specifically hear from you. This may be a little bit different if you have, let's say, a 15-minute or a 10-minute lightning round with one person, then maybe you do want to kind of get to the point. But I would caution, at least have one opener, and it doesn't take a whole lot of prep. You can, let's say, look at their LinkedIn, and maybe you went to the same college. Maybe there's the idea is to find something that you have in common to build rapport. And then from there, to be really clear and concise in what your value proposition is. A lot of entrepreneurs in particular may sort of stumble when they're at a networking event and maybe someone asks them, what do you do? So getting to a place where you can say in very clear terms, what your name is, what your company name is, and maybe what your product or service is, and the end result in one or two sentences is going to enable that dialogue to then continue. But even if it doesn't, the other person or the other people will have the information that they need.
So, and I often tell people that when you're nervous about talking about yourself, just say, "Hi, I'm Mary Scott. Tell me about you," and do a lot of listening. Just do a lot of listening. You don't know if you can help them or if they're even going to be interested in you until you know a little bit more about them. And that's something to be considered pretty carefully, right?
Well, and there are also, to go a little bit deeper, there are certain um, mindset hacks that you can use. I'm a big proponent of meditation. And in my book, Confident Introvert, I go into different strategies and tactics. One of them being having a daily practice called the Daily 3-2-1. And what that is it's 30 minutes of reading, 20 minutes of journaling and 10 minutes of meditation. So it's a power hour. You can do it to kind of set your day off on the right foot when you first wake up. It's something that you can do right before bed to help with sleep. That's completely tech free. And this really allows you to tune into yourself because introverts by nature are more introverted, more attuned to, their own energy than most people. So to be able to take that time, that quiet time for yourself, and so reading is something that can come really naturally to a lot of introverts. But then when it comes to writing, maybe that's something that will take a little bit of practice to really just allow yourself all the thoughts that are swirling, just put them on paper, a narrative therapy of sorts, and then you can kind of calm your mind. And meditation being another opportunity to really integrate, let's say, anything that's happened that day, or really level yourself and level your thoughts so that when you go into that day, go into that meeting, you're able to regulate any anxiety that may arise.
Right. And doing the brain dump at night is probably one of the best things a startup can do, because one of the big mistakes a lot of startups make is that they think they have to do it all themselves. And when you get all those things out, you can see it in black and white, and then you got a better chance of being able to prioritize things.
Allowing yourself to take more conscious pauses and to observe the thoughts that you're thinking and allow us a healthy sense of detachment. Like, okay, those are the thoughts that I'm thinking, because, there are certainly best practices where it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on, where it's like, okay, ask people about themselves, problem solved. Not exactly. This is, I really like to work with people at getting to the root of how to make sure that issue isn't something that needs to persist. That doesn't necessarily mean understanding that, oh, when you were 5 years old, someone said this to you and you made it mean that. That can be interesting. It's not always entirely helpful. While you can certainly fake it till you make it. But I really like to advocate for having different behaviors and mindset working in tandem with each other so that you have a lasting result in how you're interacting and how you're presenting yourself.
Right. And the other side of, or an addition thing to not really having to do it all yourself, is that if you think about it, major successful companies tend to have two people. They have the guy that does the work, and then they have the song and dance person. And if you're a worker bee and you are comfy in that space, you can learn to be the song and dance person, but it's much better for you and everyone else if you find that person as a strategic alliance to come along with you. Think about Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs.
That's literally a part of my Networking for Introverts presentation that I used to tour. But yeah, sometimes it's about acknowledging that we're stronger together, and you could either work on making something that's a little wobbly into a strength, or you could focus on existing strengths and, delegate things that maybe aren't something that would ultimately serve you. But I mean, that being said, if you are a founder, it is crucial to have those skills of maybe not presenting to a large group, but at least having those one-on-one connections, because business comes down to relationships.
It does. And giving yourself the time to get to the point where you're more comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yeah, expanding your comfort zone,
So thank you so much, Stephanie Thoma. This has been very interesting. If you're an introvert, you should learn how to present. And Stephanie has some comfy ways to get you to that point. So this is Mary Scott with Business Riff. I want startups to be wildly successful. And one of the best things you can do is book a synergy call with me at businessriff.com. And join us again next time for Stuck, Time to Improv.